J-Tech Studios in Atlanta, Georgia. It's America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. And now, here are your hosts, Tom Bastak and Mike Jacobs.
Hello and welcome in. It's America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. It's the game show guys. I'm Tom Bastak.
And I'm Mike Jacobs. Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you everyone who joined us for our fabulous trivia event last week. Lots of fun there.
Congratulations to our good friend Ryan V, who was our big winner. We're very excited to be working with him. He's gotten himself a free session with the game show guys, and we're going to be able to help him help either his family, though he did mention work in his email to us, that he said he's typically the one in charge of handling these events. So that means that's great. We'll have a whole work thing, which would be cool,
Yeah,
too.
that'd be awesome. And what I like most is that the winner is not someone we knew ahead of time. Because we had some of our friends join, of course.
Sure.
And I was a little afraid that some of them would win, but I'm glad that we were able to expand our audience and make new friends. And yeah, that's great.
And if you ever want to book us, of course, you can always go online to tellthemwhatthey'vewon.com at /hire-us. Yeah.
Yes.
Brain fry for a half a second there.
It happens.
Anyway, so this week our featured game show is The Weakest Link. Mike, what do you think about this one, huh?
It won me over. I was ready to go into I went into it being like, I'm going to hate this. I don't want it. Mm-hmm. I don't like it. And I still have that aspect of it, and I think there is an aspect of it that makes it inaccessible to me specifically, but the gameplay is awesome. It's a really, really good game.
I knew you were going to love the gameplay of this when I started watching it. And here's the funny thing. I never, ever, ever watched it.
Really?
And the reason is because I can't stand when a host of a game show is mean to the contestants.
Exactly. That is how I went into this. I was like, I don't like the meanness of it, and I still don't. And I equate it to Professor Umbridge in the Harry Potter series. I just I don't hate the woman. I hate the character that she's playing.
Yes,
and
exactly.
The goodbye, my teeth clench. My fists ball up, like I can't watch it. I hate it.
Yeah, I hate that, and I also hate games where people go away with nothing.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's a bummer. We've talked about it in the past, the idea of the parting gift and whatnot. That didn't bother me so much, but yeah, just the being mean to the contestants thing, I do not like it.
Well, we'll talk way more about that, because I'll also talk to you, because I got my feelings changed on it a little bit too, and we'll talk more about that in the very end. But we've got gameplay and history ahead of us, and of course, it is also time to bring in Christian with the news and see if we can finally stump the chump.
Let's see what happens.
Light up your cigarette, crack open a beer, put the kiddos to bed. From chaos around the world to carnage in your very own front yard, it's time for the news.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Mike. This is the news brought to you by BuzzerBlog.com. A classic video game is getting the game show treatment. Frogger is casting 4 contestants. They're turning the classic video game Frogger into a large-scale, think something along the lines of Wipeout, a large-scale physical game show. Now, they are looking for contestants with very strong athletic ability, as well as, I'm sure, the other classic game show contestant qualities. They are filming in Australia, so anybody applying does need a passport, and we do have casting information up on buzzerblog.com if anybody's interested in trying out. This is one I'll be sitting out.
Yeah, this is not for me, but
it sounds really cool. So just to clarify, though, when you say like Wipeout style thing, like there's going to be big physical things, because like when I first read about this, or when you first mentioned it to us, I pictured almost like how they did Nick Arcade, where they're just like on a big screen kind of thing, but there's actual physical props hitting the people.
No, yes, it's been made clear that this is going to be a large physical representation of the game. They are blowing up this game to be larger than life, and people will be running across the roads and streams and dodging alligators and carrying flies and doing all that stuff that you did in the arcade game.
All right. I'll let it pass.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I've got we already have this game. It's called Floor is Lava.
Yeah.
It's essentially the same thing.
Basically, yeah, I can see the parallel there for sure.
But because I'm such a big Frogger fan, I'll watch it.
I mean, I like Floor is Lava. I don't see the problem.
Yeah, agreed. All right, cool. What else you got, Christian?
Well, in addition, so this is going to be good news for all of us here. I know we've been talking about Holy Moly, how much we love the show, and we've been waiting to hear news of its renewal. Well, Holy Moly on ABC has been renewed for Season 3 and Season 4. So we're getting another 2 seasons of Holy Moly, which I'm super duper excited about.
Are they going to replace Joe Tessitore after 2 seasons?
I hope not. I haven't heard anything about any cast changing, but I hope it stays true to the show we know and love.
Absolutely. I'm loving it. Absolutely loving it. All right, what else?
Well, we have a couple of shows that premiered this week, some interesting hosting choices. So, Chain Reaction on Game Show Network. The original GSN version was hosted by a guy named Dylan Lane. And when it was announced this year that the show was going back into production, almost 2 decades later, it was also announced that Dylan Lane was coming back as host. So he is back. A lot of people had complaints about him the first time around. He was kind of boring and dry and robotic. I think he does a great job. I think that he's older and wiser with less hair. Not that that makes a difference, but I think he's doing a fantastic job. And Chain Reaction, again, is just one of those games that I will always love. It's always fun to watch and play along with.
Mike, have you seen this game at all?
Uh-uh.
Oh, yeah, you'll love it. It's a wordy game. You'll love it.
Awesome. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, if you like lingo, Mike, you'll really like Chain Reaction.
Right on. Yeah, I'll take a look into it. It sounds like it's up my alley.
And then we have the second guest host of what looks to be many, Mike Richards, who is the executive producer of Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune, in addition to being the former host of GSN's take on the $100,000 Pyramid, as well as a reality show called Beauty and the Geek from a few years ago. He just wrapped up his first week as guest host, and a lot of people, especially on Twitter, really like this guy. I mean, he's a handsome dude. He knows how to read the material. He knows how to keep the game moving. He has a host sort of charm to him that is not very common in many other hosts. I'm still interested to see how everybody else does, but for a lot of people, I was looking on Twitter, for a lot of people, the search has ended. They want Mike Richards to be the host of Jeopardy.
Do they like him better than Ken? I'm shocked.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
I don't know that everybody who liked Ken is now totally on the Mike Richards bandwagon. I think that a lot of people who liked Ken for the reasons that they did will probably like Mike Richards for a few different reasons. It just seems like there hasn't been this sort of outpouring of approval yet. Even Ken, maybe he had the dubious distinction of being the first guest host, so there are the inevitable comparisons to the guy who hosted it for 3 decades, but it seems like a lot of people are into him. But again, Twitter is not a huge barometer of this type of thing. It's interesting to see the reaction, but we have a lot of people in the pipeline to take a shot at hosting that show, so time will tell.
Great, cool. All right, what else you got?
Okay, so this show on Fox, Cherries Wild, after a preemption, premiered last Sunday, hosted by Jason Biggs. It's a big sort of trivia-based game show where you could win $250,000, all dependent on the result of this big slot machine that takes place center stage. Now, a lot of Buzzer Blog readers and game show fans in general have made mention of this disclaimer that appears at the end of the show. So I'll spare you the legalese of it, but essentially what it says is the slot machine is not a real slot machine. It's not random. And what happens is at the beginning of every taping session, the producers get together and come up with different spin results. And according to their standards and practices, as long as one of those can possibly result in a $250,000 win, it's completely legal for them to run this absolutely not random, totally pre-programmed, pre-planned slot machine. So a lot of people are kind of up in arms about that, especially in the game show community.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that.
Seems kind of icky, right?
Yeah.
Here we go. Now we're getting back to scripted television again.
Right?
It's now more of a reality show. Reality game. What do you call it, Mike? A reality
competition show.
Competition show, as opposed to a true game show.
And we've been seeing that for years and years, the idea of networks using the terms unscripted competition series, alternative series, to describe what are essentially game shows. It's also interesting that this is happening on Fox. A few years ago, there was a show that was set to premiere on Fox called Our Little Genius. And the premise of the show was that parents would bring their really smart kids in to play this quiz game to win money for the family, and these kids would, compete against each other. It turned out that the producers were giving answers to the contestants in advance. And so the show was canceled immediately, never saw the light of day.
Wow.
So it's just interesting that with this one network, this is now the second time in a matter of a few years that we have some, and again, this one apparently is legal, but still leaves a weird taste in my mouth.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's like, oh, I can't remember what comedian says this, but like people who say it's a free country, like if that's your only reason for saying that you're able to do something, it means you're kind of being a dick. If their only rationale for being able to do this is that it's legal, then they know that they're doing something wrong.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree wholeheartedly, Mike. That's a very well placed argument, and I agree. All right, Christian, how about this week in game show history?
Well, this week in game show history, we are going back to March 4th, 1988, and the taping of a game show that I guarantee most of our listeners have never heard of. The show was called Top Secret. Now, Top Secret was created by Wink Martindale, and he hosted 3 pilot episodes of this show on March 4th, 1988. Now,
I already love it.
Now, the idea of the show is this. Contestants answer questions to win money. They then use that money to buy clues from the other players. Each of them has a secret identity. They might be a person, a place, or a thing. They buy clues from the other players to figure out what their identities are. And the set was a big giant briefcase. And for the bonus round, it kind of opened up, like, it had big hinges. And it was a really cool show. And it was so cool that it was set to air on CBS. It was so cool, in fact, that not only was it set to air on CBS, Parker Brothers began producing the home version of this game.
What?
So you could imagine the stress that they were under when all of a sudden CBS pulled the show off their schedule. It never aired.
Oh.
So suddenly, Parker Brothers issued a recall for the Top Secret board game. So there's a board game out there based on a game show that never existed on television. And as a result, it is one of the rarest game show related board games in existence. So rare, in fact, that Wink Martindale himself had to pay $90 on eBay 20 years after the fact to get his copy.
Wow. I gotta look through my collection because I feel like I remember having a game called Top Secret, but I'm gonna have to double check.
It pops up once in a while. Again, it was on shelves for like if you blink, you missed it. And as a result, it is just this exceedingly rare element of game show history happened this week.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. Oh, what a great! See, that's an awesome tidbit for this week in game show history. That's great.
For sure. Well, and it harkens back to what I was talking about last week with my addiction to collecting. Like, now that I know that exists, it's like, all right, now I gotta go find this sucker.
Yes. Oh, it's been my white whale for years. I know it's out there somewhere. I know it is. Once in a while, it'll pop up on eBay. I one day I will have it. It will be mine.
Well, if I'm right and I do have one, which I don't think I do, but you never know, it's yours.
Oh, no way. Well, we have a second. Go ahead and look. We got a minute. I can fill some time.
You really want me to? I'll go look.
No. We have to stump or chump here. That's way more important.
All right.
Yeah, I guess.
All right, Mike, it's time for Stump or Chump. Do you got a question for our resident incredible man, and we are the resident chumps now?
Yeah, I mean, I think we will firmly be standing in the chump line with this one, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not confident about it, but I think it's maybe tough enough. We'll see what happens. Our show this week, of course, is The Weakest Link, so that is the show that will be providing our question.
Okay.
It's pretty quick and simple here. What is the answer to the last question on the last episode of The Weakest Link?
Oh.
The answer to the last question on the last episode of The Weakest Link.
Yes.
Oh.
So
Now,
there were a few.
I was going to clarify. By speaking of the last episode, I'm referring to the British version because it lasted longer than the American version.
Oh.
I'll tell you that much.
I just mentioned this a couple weeks ago, that the show had been on for like almost 2 decades in England.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing the last episode because I was so fascinated that it had been on for so. I was so fascinated that it had been on for so long. The final answer to the final question on the final episode. All right. Here's my answer. I don't know.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I have no clue. I couldn't even guess. Home of the Whopper. Home of the Whopper is my guess. I have
Always go with
no
home.
idea.
Always go with Home of the Whopper if you don't know.
I have absolutely no clue. I would never. I don't know. I don't know.
All right.
Oh.
Well, we're taking it.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I kind of feel like it's a false win because it's technically not an American game show that we're referring to here. But I'm going to take the win because we need it.
Yeah. We got to show it can happen.
Earned fair and square. And I got to be honest with you, I was able to watch the show. I saw the episode. I don't keep up with the show, but it's easily viewable by me here in America, and I have no idea.
What if I had phrased it, what letter was the answer to the last question?
I don't know. Out of 9 out of 10 times, aren't you supposed to go with B?
Well, can I guess if I'm just guessing the letter of the alphabet?
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess Q.
Ooh, incorrect. Why do you think Q?
I would have thought maybe be a James Bond question.
Oh, gotcha. I was thinking maybe you were going for the theoretical, historical, biblical text. No, the question was, if the Roman numeral X is halved, you get what other Roman numeral?
Oh,
V.
okay, V, yeah.
Correct, indeed.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, there
Wow.
it is.
Okay, we're going to take the win. I'm not happy about it, but we're going to take it.
It's a dirty win, but it may have an asterisk after it, but dang it, it's a win.
I humbly accept my maybe false defeat. I'll wait for the results to come back from the lab, but for now, that was a wonderful question. I got.
All right.
Yay! Finally, we'll take it. I still feel dirty. I really do.
That's probably my last episode now. Geez.
Oh no, that's it, Christian. You're done.
Our next episode, well, instead of news, Christian had a terrible bout of diarrhea, so he won't be here this week.
That's me for this segment every week.
Oh gosh. All right. Speaking of the weakest link, it is our featured show this week. Christian, your thoughts?
Yeah, when I think about the weakest link, I forget that it wasn't really on for as long as its impact on pop culture tends to suggest. You say you are the weakest link, goodbye. I mean, it's not as commonly used as it was at the show's peak of popularity, but people really, really, really fondly remember the show, and it was only on really for a couple of years.
Right.
Really interesting that it was part of this huge rush of British import that was coming to America in the wake of the success of Millionaire, which was, of course, a British format. When they announced the show, they didn't have a host yet, and now the host that they had intended was, remember Richard Hatch, the guy who won $1 million first season of Survivor?
For the very first Survivor. Yeah,
so he
absolutely.
was long rumored to be the host of the American version of The Weakest Link, and then I guess maybe some last-minute contractual stuff fell into place. And the original host of the British version, Ann Robinson, stepped in and hosted the American one as well.
I wonder if it was because he went to jail. Remember, he had that whole thing with tax evasion and stuff.
It might have been that too. I wonder what the timeline of that was, because he won in 2000, and the show premiered, I want to say 2001.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I wonder if that has something to do with it. It could have been. Well, anyway, he was the long rumored to be the original host in consideration. Now, when the syndicated version was premiering, and that was hosted, of course, by George Gray, who's now the announcer on The Price is Right, there was a contestant, and I want to say her name was Michelle. Michelle was so impressive to the producers that they gave her a shot hosting a pilot episode for the syndicated version of the show that she was a contestant on. One of the few, now we have Ken Jennings, of course, but before that, one of the very, very few contestants who had a shot at hosting the show.
That's so great. You'd always hope that that's happening. If you're a big game show guy or gal and you're on the show, God, it's like your dream to say, hey, you know what? You did so well. We'd love to make you the host,
Oh, wouldn't it be incredible? Yeah.
Oh, totally incredible. Well, that's awesome. Anything else you've got? Any other tidbits you want to share with this?
I think that's it. That's
Excellent.
all I got. I love the Weakest Link. It was fun to watch. Again, just surprised it didn't last as long here as it did. Again, about 17 years on the BBC in England, which is an incredible run for a game show.
Yeah, it is. All right. Well, how about a plug for Buzzer Blog?
Of course, BuzzerBlog.com, the #1 game show website in the world. Whether you're looking for information on casting, new series, returning series, reviews of game shows of the past and present, whether you're an industry insider, a casual game show fan, or diehards like me, Tom, or Mike, BuzzerBlog.com is the place to go.
Thank you so much, Mr. Christian.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys.
And there it is, Mike. We got him.
We got him. Maybe it's dubious because it was a British version, but I don't care. I got it. I'm taking it. He accepted it. There it is.
Yeah.
On file.
And he handled it extremely well.
He did. You know what? That graceful loss, Christian. Well done.
Yes. And like I said, I feel a little dirty from it, but I'm fine with it. Look, if you want to help Stump the Chump, please write in and give us an email, which you can catch us on the website, or you can send it through social. We'd be happy to take your questions and put one up against our local historian and news director, Christian Carrier.
Indeed. And I will say, I think part of the reason we mentioned this in the segment itself, but I think part of the reason why I don't feel so bad about it is because it had to happen eventually, right? Like if he literally never misses a question, everyone listening is going to be like, okay, well, he's just looking these up on his phone.
Right. Well, and the funny thing is that, I'm very careful on the editing process, like not to edit out too much. The only time I will edit anything out is if he takes an incredibly long pause before his answer.
Right.
I will shorten that time a little bit. But I truly don't want to put I don't want to, edit it too much because I want people to understand that he's really legitimately not looking these up and getting them by racking his brain. Now, you guys can't see it because you don't have Zoom, but we Zoom this call. And to see him just sitting there thinking, and he's literally just going through his brain and
I was going to say,
processing.
you can see the filing system in his head, and he's just flipping through it. Oh, there it is. Pull that out and look. Okay, here's your answer. And I love that he doesn't if you asked me a question like that, I would sort of hem and haw through my answer while I got to it. He is silent until he finds that file with a piece of information on it, and then, okay, here we go, and then lists off. It's incredible.
And then 100 other pieces of information that go with that.
Which also ruin future potential questions, because I've had lists of questions, and as he goes through his little spiel, it's like, all right, well, I got to mark that off, got to mark that off.
Check that out. All right, well, this week, our featured show is The Weakest Link, as we said, and coming up next, it's the gameplay. Take us out, Mike.
You've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won.
There it is, the intro to The Weakest Link, this week's featured show on America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. Oh, Michael, it's gameplay time.
It is gameplay time. Easily the best part of this show, if you ask me.
Sure.
It's interesting because it is somewhat cooperative. They start off with a team of 8 contestants, and they are indeed working together to try and bank as much money as possible into a communal pool, and they do so by answering rapid-fire questions.
Not all that difficult, I might add, those questions. Those questions are relatively easy.
Yes, and I don't remember where else we've talked about this concept, but again, the idea is that it's speed, right? You have to know them quickly, not necessarily if you have to know them. And there's also a lot, I don't know if this was necessarily planned, but it felt like there were a lot of questions that were like, here is a question about a thing where you will most likely just vomit out the answer that you most commonly know. Like one of them was a question about architecture. Mm-hmm. And it was the question was, what architect blah, 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 blah. And of course, just the most well-known architect was Frank Lloyd Wright. So that's just what they said. But then it ended up being a different architect. And so it's questions like that where they're like, there is an obvious answer, but it's probably not the right one, so give it a second, right?
Sure.
But overall, not terribly difficult. They, ahead of the game, will choose a starting player, and then they start off with the first round being timed at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So with that starting player, they fire a quick question at them. And if the question is answered correctly, the dollar value that they are currently at is temporarily earned, and then the next question will increase in value. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you've got this little ladder of the scale of money, right? So the first question highlights the $1,000 sphere, oval, if you will, and then they get that question right. The next question goes up to $2,000, and that $1,000 is temporarily earned. Now, what I mean by temporarily is that they don't actually have that money yet. Before they get the money, a player needs to bank what is there. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So we've discussed what happens if the question is right. If the question is answered wrong, no money is earned, and the value resets back to $1,000. So like I said, you have to bank what is earned. If you get a question wrong and you haven't banked that temporary earnings, they are lost. So either way, when the question is over, the host will immediately move to the next contestant, and that's when they have the opportunity to bank. So Tom, I answer a question correctly, and then the host turns to you and says, Tom, you could then declare before the question comes, bank, and any question that, or any dollar values that we've temporarily earned is put into a bank that is guaranteed to remain for the rest of the game.
So why wouldn't you bank at the beginning of every question?
Because the point values increase, the dollar values increase in larger amounts every time. So it's not like you go 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, you can just bank 1,000 every time. The longer streaks you go with getting questions right, the more money you're going to earn.
So as soon as you bank it, so if I banked it after you send it over to me, so you answer the question, it comes to me, and before we do it, I go bank, it goes back down to 1,000.
Correct.
Right.
It resets the value. So either a bank or a missed question starts the value back over.
I read somewhere that some person had done, I don't know if it was a PhD student or whatever, had done a test as to like watching all of the episodes to figure out like when the best time to bank was. And they said after 6 questions were answered straight, or at the after every question. And I was like, wow, after every question would be that you're shooting yourself in the foot in terms of making more money.
Yeah, but I could see that because you're guaranteeing that money, and like there are episodes on YouTube where the people just do terribly, and it is very much an idea of the weakest link in that there are people who are doing very well, and then other people aren't banking when they need to, or are missing questions that theoretically they should be getting, and really drag down the average of the team, and they end up the round with nothing banked. And it's like, at that point, it's like, okay,
wow.
Well, I should have at least gotten $1,000 from the one question we got, you know?
Well, yeah, because if you think about it, you go around, it's $9,000, right? Or $8,000. There's eight contestants. Right. So that's $8,000 if you banked after every question.
If every question is gotten right. Yes, that is correct.
Correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is a lot of strategy involved in here of when to go, when to not.
Sure.
Of course, the real bummer is if you don't bank and you get a question wrong. And it's just like, oh God, I just flushed the toilet.
Then you're getting voted off the island.
Absolutely. Basically, like you said, you're going to vote at the end. Time runs out. And everybody, basically, you need to pay attention while what's going on as to what other people are doing, because you're now all going to vote people off the island, just like on Survivor. You're voting for the weakest link. In your opinion, the person who did the worst. But that's not always necessarily who you want to vote for, because at the end of all of this, there's only going to be one winner, right? And so that's why I'm saying it's semi-competitive, because at the end of the day, you want to be the only person remaining. So if you have the opportunity to vote someone off who would be a strong contender, that's also a very plausible strategy, right?
Right. This is what it comes down to. This is where Survivor really made its money on, which was the whole alliances, or, you know, are people voting for people based on, you know, the fact that they're the weakest link and they need to go, or is it because they're the biggest competitor and they need to go?
Yeah. Well, and so for me, I don't know. I would consistently go with the weakest link idea, because, like I said in that last scenario, there's opportunities for, even if people aren't doing well, there's opportunities for thousands of dollars every round if people are really paying attention and doing things right. So to me, the weakest link is really what's dragging things down. I'm not as worried about competition. I'm okay with losing because someone is better than I am. I'm not okay with losing because someone else stunk up the game for me.
Right, I get it.
Yeah.
Like Christian on the chase.
Exactly. I wasn't going to say it, but I'm glad you did. So then basically once that happens, the person who gets the majority of the votes is eliminated with the now ubiquitous and, in my opinion, cringeworthy, "You are the weakest link. Goodbye." And they're kicked off the show. They get nothing. The time limit is then decreased for the next round by 10 seconds, and then we run it back again. And this just sort of repeats until there's only 2 contestants left.
Just out of curiosity, what happens if there's a tie for the votes?
The tiebreaker would be the person who is currently the strongest link, the person who did the best performance. And I believe the way the show bases performance is just on right answers versus wrong answers. I don't think they take the banking strategy into effect there, or into account.
But I also think it's based on speed too, because like I know at the end of like a first round they'll say Bob was the strongest link, and I'm like, how did they figure that out? Bob got it right just like everybody else did, but I think it's also timing.
It might be. You're right. I don't know exactly what their formula is for showing for describing the rankings that they've come up with.
Sure.
But yeah, so if there is a tie, the strongest link will then get to break the tie. And that does not mean that the person who the strongest link voted for is eliminated. It means that they can then choose. So in other words, if I voted for you to be eliminated and then Susan also tied with you and I was the strongest link, I could change my vote to Susan if I wanted to. And I think that is maybe where I would maybe be tempted to eliminate a stronger person. I don't know, it's hard to say what you would actually do in that situation. But again, in theory, I would then have the deciding vote of who gets eliminated.
Okay, so you're down to 2 people.
Yep, and then you run into the final round, which is a head-to-head battle between the 2, and they just get alternating questions until either time runs out or one person has gotten so many right that it's just a shutout. The other person cannot recover. And this round is still kind of rapid fire, but they definitely slow it down a lot. It's meant to be a little more dramatic. They give them a little more time to answer. But yeah, it's literally just back and forth. I think it goes through 5 questions, and winner gets all the money. Everyone else on the show gets absolutely nothing.
That's rough.
I mean, I guess so. To me, I would not have minded being on this show, save the host. I would not be able to keep my cool on this show with her as the host. The syndicated version with the other host, which we'll talk about later, I would have done a little bit better on. But yeah, my temper would have gotten the better of me on this program with her as the host. But I would not be upset with the idea of getting nothing, but her saying goodbye. I'd have done like that guy on the Icelandic show and just flipped my podium over and stormed off.
which by the way, for those who don't know, I'll have to push that out on the website. The video of this Icelandic guy who apparently, I guess from what Christian says, his buzzer wasn't working, so he got so teed off that he like basically had a temper tantrum.
Yeah, flipped over his podium and chucked a glass of ice water into the audience.
I was like, wow. Here's this. Yeah, this is a kid that when he was growing up was the baby in the family, faux show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm the baby in the family, but I am okay with losing. I'm not competitive at all. So
I was very competitive as a younger child. And I mean, today I'm still competitive, but I don't mind losing now. Now the only time I don't mind, the only game I don't like losing at is a card game that we play called Shanghai Rummy, and I'm not really okay with losing. Although I win so often now that when I lose once, I'm kind of like, all right, let him win. You know?
I hear you there. I have a thing where I'm not competitive, but I enjoy the competition. I don't care about the outcome necessarily, right? I enjoy the game of it.
Sure, I agree with you. Yeah.
And the only time I really get like upset when I lose is if it is just an absolute shutout, and at that point I'm not upset that I've lost. I'm upset that I didn't get to play the game, where you just sit there and
Right,
the
you
other
didn't
person
really have a shot.
steamrolls you and you just get nothing the whole time, those to me are not fun games.
Yeah, it's kind of like our podcast.
Is it?
No, I'm just I try not to steamroll you, Mike. I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought you were saying I steamrolled you.
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay, good. I think we have an excellent
fine.
back and forth.
Excellent. Speaking of back and forth, it's time to go away and then come back again, and we'll deal with the history, right? Was that everything, or did we miss anything else?
No, I think we're good, but that was a tenuous transition, my friend.
It was not a good seg. Leave me alone.
It's fine. It's fine.
You've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. And welcome back. Episode number 38, segment number 3. The Weakest Link is our featured game show. This is America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. Mike, here we go.
Yes.
History.
The show began its life 16th of April, 2001. It was on NBC, and oddly enough, the first 3 episodes aired in the same week. I don't know if they were like one after the other, like next days, or if there were any time in between.
Yeah, this was kind of like what Millionaire was doing, though. Like, Millionaire had come on and like, well, this Tuesday and Thursday, who wants to be a millionaire? And it was like...
Yeah, and I guess it's just because with the initial hype, they want to get it out there as much as possible.
Sure.
But after that, it went to a weekly affair with, of course, Anne Robinson as the host. She was the carryover from the British version. And like Christian said, they had... thought about recasting her, but ultimately, love her or hate her, I think she's the right person for the role that she plays. That's for sure.
I love her as a person. Hate that character that she played on that show.
Well, I don't know anything about her as a person, but yes, I absolutely loathe that character, and I can't not like I'm an actor. I understand the difference between the character and the actress.
Sure,
but I don't know that I will ever be able to fully separate. And it's the same thing with, I don't know the name of the lady, but whoever played Professor Umbridge in the Harry Potter movies. Like, I just hate the character so much. Anyways, I'm going off on a...
It's not just the people that you hate necessarily that get typecast into those things. My wife's watching a show called Succession right now on HBO Max. And in it, the gentleman who plays Charles Ingram from the A&E show that we watched back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Is in the show, and I can't see him but anybody else but Charles Ingram.
Yeah, well, I mean, that'll happen.
And it's just sad. And Jenny said, yeah, she's in the middle of season 2 right now. It took her the entire first season and half of season 2 to finally like start to separate him from his character as Charles Ingram.
Well, and I do know that was a very big problem for Jim Varney, best known as Ernest.
Oh, yeah.
He very, very much disliked that role towards the end of his life and really wanted to get away from it, but just simply could not.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate.
It is.
Yeah, so the show was just an immediate smash success. It just skyrocketed. Like we talked in the news, it had a massive impact on pop culture. That the phrase of "you are the weakest link, goodbye" became so ubiquitous in just like the pop culture parlance, right?
Sure.
To the point where like it's even being parodied, and like you see there's an episode of Family Guy where someone says it and they get mocked for it being so overused. And this is within a year. The entirety of the show was just over a year. So obviously we can't discount the impact that this show had. It was also sort of the first post Millionaire show, right? Like we've talked about how Millionaire really had this sea change in the landscape of game shows where everything goes blue and dramatic and these sharp stings of music and that sort of thing.
And it's the same music, really.
It really is. It really is. Obviously not literally the same, but like I say, just watch this show, and if you don't see Millionaire influence there, then you're not paying attention.
Exactly.
But the honeymoon faded quickly, and ratings took a steep decline. It just didn't work in America, and I have a theory that a snooty British woman is not the vehicle for this show in America. I think there are too many Americans that are going to just be like, I don't want this British lady thinking she's better than me, you know?
Yeah, I guess I can kind of see that. I mean, again, we'll talk more about this in a little bit. I am just not crazy about hosts who treat their people badly. That's
well, and that's the thing. Is like at the end of the day, I don't want to be a person that is saying that I have a problem with a British person acting snooty. I think that's actually kind of in line with what I would expect from British people. It doesn't bother me at all. And I say that in a very loving manner, of course.
Sure.
Yeah. I have a bit of a love affair with the British culture, so you know, certainly no real
no
harm
ill will.
Intended. Yes, exactly.
No ill will.
But you know, I think there has to be a non-zero number of people in America who had that reaction, and I have to imagine that that's at least part of the reason why it didn't do well. And I think the rest of the reason is that, like you and I, people just aren't into bullies as a host.
Sure.
I just think that concept in general doesn't work as well here, but we'll come back to that later. As the ratings are declining, the producers are scrambling and just doing all sorts of chicanery. They're doing celebrity episodes and Halloween episodes and just gimmicks left and right. But it really only makes things worse. It's that kind of like act of desperation where it's just like, oh, what are you doing? Please.
Hey, we've clearly jumped the shark here. Stop.
Exactly. And I think it was just like at that point they had already jumped the shark, and now we're like landing in the wrong position and the skis have flown off and we're drowning, right?
Right.
So it ends up getting canceled. The final episode airing on July 14th, 2002, and there were actually still 10 episodes left on unaired. They eventually were shown in reruns on Game Show Network. So it's not like they're lost episodes. Don't worry, guys. But yeah, they did not make it to the initial first run airing. During the time that the show was tanking, they had unfortunately already started a syndicated version, and that premiered on January 7th, 2002, so before the cancellation of the initial run. And this one was hosted by George Gray. I didn't really know much about him, but when I looked at his Wikipedia, I noticed Movies for Guys Who Like Movies on TBS, which was there when I was there, and I definitely remembered him from that. I had forgotten about that program. I don't know if anyone else remembers this, but it was basically just like they'd show a movie and then like do stuff in between. It was TV, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's all those shows that are like DVD Rewind or whatever, like where they're like showing bonus things between scenes of the
dinner
movie
in a movie, and exactly that kind of stuff. He's okay, I guess. He's kind of a dork. And he is not as mean, which I liked. And he's a little more affable and goofy, I guess. So it settled a little better with me. But if you watch an episode of The Real One, and the Real One, that's kind of mean, but the original version and the syndicated version back to back, the syndicated version is very much the Gobots to the original version's Transformers. It is just budget, and you can tell in every aspect.
Now you're making me feel bad because I had Transformers as a child, and my friends had Gobots.
You had the better version.
Oh no, I mean, there's no doubt I did. There's no doubt I did. I just now, I guess, put two and two together that they probably were not as well off as my parents were to get me transformed.
Right. Well, hey, I mean, at least you weren't like the kid who had to play with rock lords, right?
Oh,
I don't know if anybody even remembers rock lords.
barely.
But they were transformers that turned into rocks.
Yeah.
Let me tell you how thrilling
Yeah.
that is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Anyway, so this syndicated version, it suffered from almost the exact same fate as the original in that it was very, very popular at first. It did well and then just absolutely tanked and nothing could save it. It also got the axe, and the final episode aired on May 30th, 2003. Farewell, Weakest Link. You were a British experiment that succeeded very well there, but did not do so well in the US. Except maybe it will now, because there is now a revival that is on the air with, I guess, technically not on the air at this moment of recording, but hosted by Jane Lynch. It premiered on September 29th, 2020, and the first season concluded on February 1st of this year. And they've already announced that a second season has been ordered. I don't know if it's in production yet or not, but 13 new episodes will be coming with, again, Jane Lynch as the host. I absolutely love her. I adore everything she is in. I don't want to watch this because I don't want to see her in the same light as Anne Robinson. I don't want to see her become that jerky character that I hate.
Now, I have to tell you, I have watched it, and I like her, and I like her a lot, and she handles it differently, Mike. And this is what we could start to talk about a little bit, because now we're getting into ratings at this point.
Sure.
But Jane Lynch is a comedian, and to me, she's just funny. And I've seen her in so much, and I love her in so many things that when she makes fun of people, it comes off as funny. It doesn't come off as mean. And Anne Robinson literally would like insult people.
Yes. Well, and that's the thing is, like, Anne Robinson is not trying to get on anybody's side, right? So again, going with the idea of we're talking about ratings, I want to dive into this a little bit more. I don't see how that is entertainment. I don't understand who the market of person is that gets a kick out of watching somebody be mean to somebody else. And that's why I'm afraid to see Jane Lynch do it. Now, if as you say, she's able to make it more lighthearted and keep you on her side, I'm more on board with checking it out. But I guess I'm cautious because I like her so much that I don't want to have my opinion of her soured.
And this could also be an opposite of what we're talking about, whereas we say we're not saying anything about Anne Robinson as an individual, but as the portrayer of the actress that she is for this role. We don't like this person in this role. This may be the opposite, where I like Jane Lynch so much that even with her playing a role, that I can't see it as mean.
Yeah, and so that may be another factor, because I had never seen Anne Robinson in anything else, so I had no preconceived notions of who she was. Mm-hmm. Same with the lady who played Professor Umbridge. I have no idea who that is, but that's the only thing I've ever seen her in. With Jane Lynch, I do have a fairly storied history to know who the person is, and maybe that would help sort of distance from that.
Yeah, I don't have this in front of me, but I want to say the lady who played Umbridge is actually going to be cast as the Queen in the next The Crown episode, or like a season.
I could see that for sure.
Well, I could see it too, but I think that it's a very similar character.
Well, I think that's why we can see it.
I know, but what I'm saying is that we're probably still going to hate her.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know much about the Queen, but is she a jerk?
No, and you know what? She's not. She's if you've watched any of The Crown, at least the way she's being portrayed in The Crown.
Sorry, and which is this, Elizabeth, or like who? What queen is in The Crown? I know nothing about this show.
This is the current queen that is in the show.
Yeah.
But they go through her life of, like, you know, they've had three different actors. This will be the third actress to play the queen. So they do a couple of years with one queen and a couple more years with the next queen, and then now they're going to do the last two seasons with this final queen.
Gotcha.
And they do recast some of the characters from season to season, because as they time jump, they recast them in
because they're going significantly older, I guess.
Correct. So she doesn't come off as a queen, but she's definitely got that harshness to her. That you know. She's a royal, and she's not going to mingle with the little, you know, people.
That's fair. That's fair. From what I understand, she has a really good sense of humor, but I don't know nothing about her.
Hey, she owns corgis. She can't be all that bad.
True.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Anyway, so we should probably do a rating system. And what should we do? Links?
Links. That's where I was thinking.
All right. Well, I'll go first on this one if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Go right ahead.
I love the gameplay, and I'm not really the gameplay guy. I'm the show guy. I'm not happy about the show here because it is so post Millionaire type show. But here's the thing: it was also right after Millionaire, so
Right.
it makes sense.
Yep.
This is like one of the few shows that it like makes sense to be like a Millionaire copy.
Yeah,
because
it was really the only one where it was like okay. After that, it was like all right.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. And I do like the idea of the voting people off thing. What I don't like is, and I saw this a lot in the Ann Robinson version, is really hounding the people for voting other people. Oh, so why did you pick Margaret? Mm-hmm. Why don't you like her? Like, I'm like, whoa, hang on here. You know, I mean, the truth is that I don't need to feel that while I'm watching a show. I'm really wanting to feel something that's a little bit more happy and friendly and wonderful. And there is a little bit of this. Here's the thing, like on The Hustler, which is a very similar thing where everybody that's in the room is voting off somebody else. I mean, they do that after every question. It just doesn't seem, there's not a lot of meanness to it. I mean, there is, you know, and Craig Ferguson does ask them like, why are you voting for so-and-so? But it isn't like being condescending at all. And I just feel like there was a lot of condescendingness in this show. And therefore it kind of turned me off a little bit. So as good as the gameplay is, I definitely, if it was based on gameplay alone, this would be like a four links to me. If because there's the other things that are in here that I'm not crazy about, especially the meanness of it on the original one. Although, like I said, it's been redeemed a little bit by the Jane Lynch version. I feel like I got to go less than that, and therefore it's probably, if it was just based on not the gameplay but just the other parts of it, it would probably be like, okay, it's a 2. So a 2 and a 4, we're mixing them together. I'm going to come out as a 3 for the weakest link. 3 links for the vote.
All right, that sounds fair. And I agree with almost everything you said. I have been dreading coming up with a score for this, and I still don't really have one, but after I explain all this, I'll land somewhere. I definitely agree. I don't like the meanness of it. It's just unnecessary. It's too far, I think. Though I will say, just sitting here looking at my notes and everything for this week, overall, in America, we have had less meanness than we have had mean on this show. If your evaluation of Jane Lynch is accurate, then, you know, Ann Robinson's version of the show only lasted a little over a year. We have George Gray's version that also lasted a little over a year, and now Jane Lynch's is going into its second season.
Right.
You know, the non-mean episodes have outweighed the mean ones, but that's where the show is born from. That's what it is in Britain, and that's it's an inescapable aspect of the show, which I think is very unfortunate because I love the gameplay. This is one of, as far as the game is concerned in and of itself, I think it's one of the favorite ones I've seen since doing this podcast. And I was not expecting that at all because all I remembered was what a jerk the host was. And I was like, I'm not going to have fun watching this, but I really, really had fun watching them play. And I like that it is semi-cooperative, but there's a competitive element to it. This to me is where the survivor mechanism works as a game show. There's a lot going for it. I can't land on a 3 like you did because to me the negativity of it on a personal level is too strong. I personally don't think I can watch the mean versions of it anymore. I'm going to check out Jane Lynch's. I don't know that I'll be able to watch it or not. There's a very like personal, guttural, like primal reaction I have to this sort of thing. And it makes it not enjoyable. It ruins the rest of the show. And like I said, I don't see how it's entertainment for people. The audience is laughing at her little barbs against the people. And I'm just like, that's not that funny because all I can do is think about me being the picked on kid and those are the insults being slung at me, right?
Maybe because of that. Maybe that's why you and I aren't meant as the audience for this. It's for all the people who used to pick on people that still like to pick on people. That's who the audience is for this.
And I think that's ultimately why it doesn't play because there's not enough people to make that a viable show. And even the people who are like, you know, these are the same people that are watching, you know, the practical joke shows and things like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm now getting on like a better than other people sort of platform. So I'm going to stop this conversation because I don't want that to be the case.
Mike, you're so much better than everybody else.
I'm simply saying that my personal life experience makes this show nigh unwatchable. And that's really a shame because I think there's an awesome game here and I want the Jane Lynch version to redeem it in my eyes. I'm currently going with a 2. I will give the caveat that it has room for much room for improvement, and maybe once I watch the Jane Lynch version, if I can ever bring myself to do it, I will bump that up. But right now, it's so hard to watch that I cannot give it more than a 2.
And there you go. All right. Well, Mike, that's it. That's all we have time for today.
Indeed it is. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Christian. Everybody at BuzzerBlog, everybody who's taken time to write to us. I would say let's stump the chump, but we did it. I don't care. We're done. As far as I'm concerned, the segment's over.
Now, because now Christian has to come back and redeem himself. He's going to be very upset if he doesn't get the opportunity to do
that's
so.
a good point. He can't go out on bottom like that.
All right. So tune in again next time. We'll bring you the latest and greatest in the world of game shows, as well as a brand new featured show, too.
And remember, you can always catch us online, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and, of course, tellthemwhatthey've.com.
Please subscribe, share, and drop a review if you like what you heard.
And if you didn't like it, you are the weakest link. I'm not even going to do the goodbye. I hate it that much. I'm not doing it.
All right. How about this? Goodbye, Mike.
Bye, Tom.
You've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast, Tell Them What They've Won. A JTech audio production. Copyright 2021. No part of this podcast may be reproduced by anyone without the express written consent of the creators. For more information or to contact us, please go to tellthemwhatthey'vewon.com.
All right, Tom, what'd you learn this week?
So, Mike, I learned, I already knew. I love Jane Lynch, and hosting now is just another reason why I like her so much. I can't wait for you to see her because she's just great. It's wonderful.
I'm so glad to hear you say that because I do love her as well. And like I said, I've been scared of this ruining her in my eyes, and I'm glad to hear that it most likely won't.
And if you don't ever want to watch it and not ruin it, then just don't. It's like I won't watch her on Glee because I've heard the character she plays, and I don't want to see her play that character.
Oh, yeah. See, I don't know anything about Glee. It's just not up my alley. So I don't.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway.
So you're never going to do it. Well, hey, that's fine. How about you? What did you learn this week?
Well, I definitely learned something, but honestly, I think it's something maybe a little more from my therapist than a podcast.
Fair enough. Good luck.
Thanks.
Copyright 2021. A JTech audio production.